The Blueprint Prophecy, allegedly delivered to Mike Bickle in 1984, served as a foundational document for the International House of Prayer. According to leaders of the movement, the mythology surrounding the prophecy began with an unknown prophet who purportedly left an envelope marked "confidential" for Mike Bickle only at the church office when no one was present to meet him. Bickle later claimed to have discovered this prophecy, which detailed the blueprint for establishing a prayer movement centered in Kansas City. According to 1 Corinthians 14, 2 or 3 prophets are to speak while others evaluate their prophecies to determine whether the prophecy comes from God. However, Bickle, Jones, and the alleged prophet who delivered the so-called blueprint prophecy appeared to bypass these instructions and seemingly convinced their peers to do the same. By doing so, Jones and Bickle avoided accountability not only for the original version of the blueprint prophecy, but also for its subsequent versions. Some of these versions included significant changes, effectively creating new blueprints and altering the course of the movement. The original version, which mentioned the latter rain movement of the late 1940s and 1950s, included specific wording intended to reestablish the latter rain movement in Kansas City and abroad. The prophecy stated, "The outpouring of the latter rain shall be released in this area and upon this city. It shall be noised abroad even worldwide." During the latter rain revivals, Branham claimed that God spoke from the heavens with the exact same message. According to Branham, as he was baptizing converts in 1933, God said, "As John the Baptist was sent forth for a forerunner of the first coming of Christ, so will your message be the forerunning of the second coming." In both cases, the alleged prophecies from God were presented in such a way that they cannot be verified. The history of the blueprint prophecy is as much about the mythology built around its delivery as it is about its actual content. On March 23, 1984, Bob Jones claimed to have audibly heard from God that Bickle would receive divine blueprints for a spiritual movement. Jones repeated this claim multiple times over the following days, including an announcement during Sunday services for all to hear. On March 26, 1984, an unnamed prophet, reportedly acting under divine compulsion, traveled 4 hours from central Kansas to deliver a written prophecy to the church office. Finding no one present, the individual left an envelope marked "confidential" for Mike Bickle only. Later that day, Bickle discovered the document, and shortly after, Jones called to confirm that the blueprints had indeed been delivered. This event, shrouded in mystery and unverifiable claims, was heralded as the inception of a divine mandate for the movement that would later become the International House of Prayer. The prophecy's authenticity was further bolstered, at least within IHOPKC circles, by an alleged angelic encounter experienced by Bickle on September 13, 1984. During this encounter, the angel allegedly affirmed that the prophecy contained much truth and great light, but indicated it was incomplete, allowing for future revelations. This notion of an evolving prophecy became a convenient mechanism for adapting the blueprint's message over time while maintaining its spiritual authority. In 1992, Paul Cain delivered what became known as the consolidation prophecy, reinforcing the blueprint's importance. However, despite its claimed divine origin, the prophecy was largely withheld from the broader IHOPKC community for nearly 2 decades and shared only among senior leadership. It was not until November 7, 2002, that portions of the prophecy were selectively released to the IHOPKC staff. Following the precedent set by William Branham and other latter-rain evangelists, Mike Bickle openly admitted to having revised the prophecy. Latter-rain leaders frequently revised their prophecies for accuracy, often altering details and, in some cases, revising entire prophecies. For example, in 1960, Branham admitted that members of his staff had revised his famous 1933 prophecies, which had changed significantly over the years from their alleged original versions. Revisions in 2006 and 2009 further modified the so-called blueprint prophecy, introducing language changes and refining its focus to align with IHOPKC's expanding mission. These adaptations eroded the transparency and integrity of a document that was originally presented as a direct divine revelation. The Blueprint Prophecy, while foundational to the identity of the International House of Prayer, became more of a moving target than an actual prophecy. The Blueprint Prophecy's focus on preparing for desolation and establishing a city of habitation parallels the apocalyptic themes central to William Branham's teachings in the Latter Rain movement. Both emphasize a sense of urgency and exclusivity in preparing for an impending spiritual or physical cataclysm. For example, the Blueprint Prophecy declares, "There shall be a time and a season and a place for my people to go before the cities become desolate." This was a common belief among those in Branham's message cult following, resulting in numerous migrations, including the transplanting of entire churches. Branham's teachings often warned of imminent destruction, combining alleged angelic visitations with prophetic visions with a doomsday narrative that necessitated loyalty to his movement. Both movements leveraged these apocalyptic warnings to create a heightened sense of fear, urgency, and exclusivity among their followers. The doctrines supporting these themes fostered a dependency on the movement's leadership for survival, while suppressing critical thought. While the Blueprint Prophecy stops short of Branham's extreme proclamations, its alignment with his themes underscores a shared theological DNA rooted in fear-based eschatology and the establishment of an elite, divinely protected remnant. It should come as no surprise that the prophecy itself mentioned latter rain, and both Bob Jones and Paul Cain strongly promoted Branham and his teachings. Also similar to Branham's alleged prophecies, the Blueprint Prophecy contained theological issues that were in direct conflict with Christianity itself, and most certainly could not have been God speaking through the so-called prophets. The purpose, it seems, was for isolation and elitism. For example, the Blueprint Prophecy instructed Bickle to, quote, act immediately to take the bride to the city of Kansas City, rather than having the city come to him. With no biblical precedent for a mass migration of Christians to Kansas City, the city itself not having the capacity to hold all of the Christians around the world, the prophecy was clearly intended to sever the global body of Christians. As it relates to the New Apostolic Reformation, the blueprints established an imbalanced and authoritarian leadership model that was in direct opposition to the leadership model described in the New Testament. According to the prophecy, quote, the government shall be by the voice of 12, and, quote, to those that will hear my voice, yield, become obedient. Much like the model of authoritarian control established by Branham and others during latter reign in the form of fivefold ministry doctrines, the blueprint prophecy required complete submission to the leadership as voices of God himself. However, as with all destructive cults, claims to have multiple leaders were gradually replaced with a central figure. The International House of Prayer would eventually form a pyramid structure of leadership and abandon the notion of the so-called voice of the 12. The 2009 version of the blueprint prophecy was significantly different from the 2002 version. Not only were details changed, but the 2009 version included significant expansions in supernatural narratives, leadership formalization, and eschatological focus. While the 2002 version laid the foundational directives for the International House of Prayer, including establishing a house of prayer, preparing a bride of Christ, and the operation of the fivefold ministry, the 2009 version incorporated new layers of prophetic storytelling. This included detailed accounts of angelic and demonic encounters, such as the Black Horse vision, which was introduced to the text to reinforce the prophecy's spiritual authority through mystical experiences. Additionally, the 2009 version heightened its apocalyptic tone, emphasizing societal desolation and the urgency for a remnant church to prepare for end-time survival. The reference to latter rain was removed from the 2009 version, concealing the movement's close ties to Branham and the healing revivals of the 1940s and 1950s. The phrase, "the outpouring of the latter rain shall be released in this area and upon this city," was changed to simply, "The outpouring shall be released in this area and upon this city." New converts to the International House of Prayer were fully unaware that the group had attempted to recreate the latter-rain revivals of the mid-20th century. Researchers investigating the differences between versions of the prophecy concluded that the adjustments were both deliberate and strategic. The changes appeared to establish the authority and legitimacy of the movement while intensifying the apocalyptic urgency. The doomsday themes stressed the coming desolation and emphasized the need for a remnant church, which, according to the prophecy, was the International House of Prayer. At the same time, removal of the language emphasizing the latter-rain movement opened the door to a much wider audience. Some changes were made to the prophecy to support the isolation and seclusion of the group. For example, the phrase, "You shall raise up other cities that shall be the permanent place," was removed from the prophecy to lead the reader or listener to believe that other cities would be desolate. The blueprint prophecy not only shaped the theological and structural framework of IHOPKC, but also reflected its leaders' efforts to adapt and control its narrative over time. The deliberate evolution of the prophecy underscores a broader strategy to reinforce authority, foster exclusivity, and expand the movement's influence while maintaining its claim of divine origin.